either side would be able to present about when changes were being made or when things were discussed with potential change makers, meaning a Harold Hudson or a different Mr. Ricker. They may be pronounced different, like the attorney from Core Enterprises. But I find that in the totality, there are sufficient circumstantial guarantees of trustworthiness. It's clearly a material fact, and at least from what has been relayed to me so far and my limited understanding of what remains in the state's case and my more thorough understanding of what the state has already presented, that statement would be more probative on the point for which it's offered than any other evidence presently available to the state. Certainly if that changes, you all should bring that to my attention because that's an important element in the analysis. So it will be allowable, again, assuming that same foundation is laid, it doesn't start to diverge. Ms. Stiles comes in and says, I sort of knew Ms. McIver, I met her twice, we've got a different situation. And it will be subject to a continuing objection from the defense. I'll give you a moment to add to the record if you want, but you're welcome to rise at the time the question is asked, but the objection was thoroughly and effectively lodged way back when I think you actually filed something in writing, but we've also had a bunch on the record about this. So I don't mean to foreclose anything, but I do mean to make clear on the record now, nothing is waived by the defense in terms of a challenge to the admission of Ms. Stiles' statement under 807, as in 24-807. Is that ruling sufficiently clear to the state that you think you know how to move forward with that and not run afoul of basically your own notice? You noticed one sentence from Ms. Stiles.
Correct.
Okay. Who will be, tentatively, who will be handling Ms. Stiles as a witness? Ms. Clark Palmer. That makes sense? I'm asking, do you agree with it? Ask it a different way. Do you understand?
I understand the court.
Okay. All right. Then let's...
I don't mean to imply that it doesn't make sense.
I don't... I wasn't asking you to accept it other than that you have to. Beyond that, all your rights are reserved as your clients. Anything else from the state before we get to update from Deputy Murphy?
Just that this afternoon, could we take up maybe a couple of minutes to talk about the motion to quash?
Sure, during a break we can do that.
During a break or, yes.
Okay. We're going to 6 tonight, so you may not want to spend a whole lot of time after that talking, but I mean...
Yeah, so when we get deep in the afternoon, I might change my mind.
Okay.
But I'll touch base with you. And also, too, Jury Detective Zenberg's testimony, I expect we'll get to him this afternoon. We intend to lay the foundation and introduce the redacted videotape and audio tape interview for the defendant. And I would ask the court if it would give some kind of instruction to the jurors to explain the choppiness they're going to see in the videotape itself. And also, I would be seeking to ask the court to allow a redacted transcript that conforms with the videotape, just be used as an aid. And so, also with the same instruction that we gave previously with respect to the other transcript.
The way you did it with the voicemail left for Tom Carter.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Samuel, I don't know if that's going to be your witness, but you've been the point person for Mr. McIver and his then lawyer's statements to law enforcement. Any issue number one with me just foreshadowing for the jurors that the interview is going to seem oddly choppy, and that's not at all remarkable because there are parts of it that weren't relevant and they're not going to hear.
That's something that would be appropriate.
Okay. What about the transcript?
The transcript was accurate, and we have no objection. Of course, you asked me, should you give a transcript to the juror?
Yes.
Of course.
Okay.
And then it doesn't go out with the juror.
No. And they don't keep it after the thing's done being played.
Yeah. And, well, that's an important point. And although I'm not going to be cross-examining Detective Zimmer, who I assume is the one who's going to put it in, we were talking over lunch about the fact that we're going to play the tape once and then ask Zimmer every single thing we have to say and emphasize it, if I could rise on behalf of Mr. Harvey, who's so shy he won't say it on his own behalf. But that's such a waste of time. If we're going to play the tape, and then the lawyer for the prosecution could say, now let's talk about, all the important things we want to talk about in the tape, and we're going to object to a kind of repetitive, at any point during the tape, did he say X, Y, Z? If it's not on the tape, it's not on the tape. What's the point? Or, did he ever say anything about ABC? We can give transcripts back, or, we would ask that they not both play the tape and then ask the detective everything that was said or not said on the tape.
Okay, I understand the request. I have found it to be an effective mode of presentation to pause the recording from time to time if something was just said that the state wants to follow up on, so that it's not, hey, remember minute 2 into the 30-minute recording when this was, in fact, let's rewind and play it again. That would work much less well. I will give the state some leeway. I think both sides have appropriately and effectively asked questions like, did this get discussed at all? Or did so-and-so say this? Within reason. And reason is when I stop you. But I don't think it's inappropriate to ask a few questions, especially if there's a topic that's germane to what has already been explored with all the other witnesses. So I won't outright prohibit follow-up based on the interview, but I think Mr. Samuel's point was well taken, that playing the interview and then replaying the interview verbally through Detective Zinberg is something that I would probably start to short-circuit before you got real far.
It's kind of interesting, I've had so many other defense attorneys say completely the opposite. I don't want you to stop it. I do want it to play completely.
Well, I didn't hear Mr. Samuel say don't pause it. I'm telling you that I won't stop you from playing partway through.
So that at the end, I don't have to go back and perhaps accentuate the narrative.
Two things on that, though. You're free to stop it whenever you want.
Okay.
You don't have to play the whole thing. But then, of course, the defense would have a right to play the rest of the parts you didn't. That's number one. Number two, in fashioning your questions, state and defense, I'm talking to Mr. Harvey's back right now, but that's all right. Asking the question, this wasn't discussed, could be a little bit of a landmine for you if, in fact, it was discussed outside of what got played. So be thoughtful with that question. Don't intentionally ask a question knowing that, yeah, it was discussed, but just not on the part that the jury's going to get, because that will invite trouble.
Yes.
Okay? Anything else before we bring the jury in?
No.
Anything from the defense?
No.
Oh, okay. Who's the next witness?
Detective Logan.
Logan.
State Police Detective Logan.
All right. Just as you got comfortable, Detective Logan, you can stand back up.
Do you swear to affirm that the testimony you should give the court today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes, sir. Get as close as you can to the mic once you're seated. For the purposes of the court's record, please state and spell your name.
It's going to be Jamel Logan. Jamel is Jamael. Logan is Logan.
And Detective Logan, if you could please introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your name again and your occupation.
Hi, I'm Detective Logan. I'm a homicide detective for the City of Atlanta Police Department. I've been on for about 11 years. I was present initially when this case happened back in September. It's like 2016, I think it was.
Okay. And you say you've been a homicide detective for about 11 years, or you've been with APD for 11 years?
I've been with APD for 11 years, so I've been a homicide detective for about two years.
And what was your assignment before you became a homicide detective?
I was an investigator in Zone 3, which is about like Turner Field. I was an investigator there for like a year and a half. Then I was a patrol officer in Zone 3 the whole previous time.
Okay. And were you assigned as a homicide detective on September 25th, 26th, 2016?
Yes.
And what was the shift that you would work at that time?
I was working the evening shift, so from 4 p.m. to midnight.
And when you're on your shift, what do your duties entail?
Investigate homicide. So investigate murders is what we do. There's a call of a serious injury victim, like not murder, but serious act of assault could potentially lead to that. We would get informed about that. We may offer assistance to that investigation, but we wouldn't intervene until the person comes deceased.
And on September 25th, were you assigned the case involving Diane McIver?
I wasn't assigned that case. I was questioned on that case. I was
Okay.
advised of that case.
And who was assigned to that case?
Initially, it was Detective Ricker and Detective Roberson. They were part of this. Just a breakdown. They were part of like the GAT unit, which is like the gun assault tactical unit the city had implemented. There's a certain amount of detectives in that unit to handle every act of assault in the city. So anytime somebody is either shot or stabbed, something to that effect, those detectives will go out and handle that call. So they got that call.
And could you explain how you became involved in the case?
I got involved in the case. Detective Roberson advised me that he got a call of a female being shot, but they're at Emory Hospital, which is in DeKalb County. And he's Atlanta, obviously. So they got the call because they believed that the incident was on us. The crime occurred in the city of Atlanta. But it hadn't been confirmed. So that's why he called me to ask for assistance and guidance on what the next steps.
And what did you advise him the next steps should be?
I advised Detective Roberson he needed to, if there was the 911 caller that he had, which I think was Patricia Carter, something like that, to take her around the area wherever she's stating that it took place, so we would know if it happened in Fulton County or DeKalb County. So if it's either Atlanta or DeKalb.
And was it determined which county that the shooting actually occurred?
Yes,
Which county was that?
Fulton County.
And after they determined that it was in Fulton County, what next steps did you take?
After Detective Roberson told me that it occurred somewhere near Piedmont Park, like near 10th and Piedmont Avenue, I advised him that I wanted to know the condition of the victim at the time. He told me that.
A little bit of background, but there's some areas that are clearly going to be hearsay, and I asked, unless there's some reason they have to with the hearsay, is being instructed not to.
That's fair. This question, as it was being answered, was getting into hearsay. So why don't you structure your questions a little bit more if you need to get to where you need to get.
Well, Your Honor, I don't think it was hearsay. It's going to inform as to why he took his next steps. He's not going to say what Ms. McIver said or anything like that. He's just going to give an update on her condition.
Okay, but it's still hearsay. Well, I don't mean to speak for Mr. Sandy. I'm sustaining his objection based on what I heard Detective Logan about to get into.
Did you learn that Ms. McIver had died?
At that point, no.
When did you learn that she died?
That wasn't until during Detective Roberson and Detective Ricker's interview with Ms. Carter.
And do you know where she was interviewed?
At police headquarters.
Were you at police headquarters?
Yes, I instructed them to bring her to police headquarters.
And after you instructed them to bring her down to police headquarters, where is that?
That's at 226 Peachtree Street. So they brought her down to like the homicide floor of the homicide.
And what were you doing in anticipation of Ms. Carter arriving to the precinct, to the headquarters?
I set up a witness room that has cameras and audio, so she could be interviewed in that room in case the victim's condition worsened, we would have that interview on the record.
And did you meet Ms. Carter when she came?
I did.
And did you participate in the first interview with Detective Robeson L. and Rickard?
No.
And do you remember how long she was there before you found out Ms. McIver died?
I don't. I don't know.
Okay. Do you need something?
No, I got a cold. I had it for like 3 weeks, and it's not going away. The cough is here now, so I got a cough drop.
And after Ms. McIver died, did the case go to the homicide unit?
It did.
And were you assigned the case at that time?
No. Once Ms. McIver passed away, the next person in line was Detective Smith. We called him and notified him of the situation. I think it was after midnight at this time, but he was next up. So we told him what the case was and what was going on, and he advised he was on his way to police headquarters.
So in the interim between Detective Smith getting to the precinct or the headquarters, did you interview Patricia Carter?
I didn't really interview her. I only asked her like a few questions. It was like basic questions I just asked her. It wasn't like a formal interview that I did with her. I was waiting for Detective Smith to do that because he was on his way. She had broke down at that time. She was crying. She had found out her best friend had died. So I consoled her a little bit, gave her some air. She walked around a little bit. And during that, I was just asking her some brief questions about a little bit of like what happened, like what's going on.
And while you were waiting for Detective Smith to come, did you let her use your phone?
I couldn't hear you.
While you were waiting for Detective Smith to come, did you let her use your phone?
I did.
And did you receive any phone calls after she used your phone looking for Miss Carter?
Yes.
About how many calls did you receive?
There was several. There was more than 4. It was kept coming. Calls kept coming.
And once you were handing over the case to Detective Smith, did you have any conversations with him about anything that you learned about the case?
I did.
And did you write a report about anything that you learned about the case?
At the time, no.
And did you have a conversation with Detective Roberson about what happened at the hospital?
I did.
And did he give you any information about the nurses at Emory Hospital?
He told me about one.
Tell me about what they said. Did he give you any information from about the nurses at Emory Hospital?
Yes.
And did you pass that information on to Detective Darren Smith?
He gave me verbal information. We had a conversation. He told me.
You're not.
Don't tell
He
me
did
what
not what he said. I'm not going to go with what she said, but he had a conversation with the nurse about whatever transpired between him and the nurse. I passed that information on to Detective Smith verbally. I gave him the same information.
And you said you did not write a report that night?
I didn't.
And why didn't you?
I'm not the lead investigator in the case, it's Detective Smith. So once I passed on the information to him, if he deems it necessary that he needs a report from you, from the information that I told him, if he doesn't receive the same information from the witnesses or people that I've spoken with, then I would give him a report. He would ask for it. He never asked for it. So I didn't do it.
Okay. And did you ever receive any type of written notes from Detective Roberson?
No.
I have another question.
Mr. Sanders, I have a question. Any questions from the jurors or? Do you have more witnesses?
I have many.
Any questions from the jurors for Detective Logan? No. Detective Logan, thank you for your time, sir. Next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls crime scene tech Nicole Bowers.
Was this who you were hoping to call earlier when Mr. Abate shushed you?
He did. No.
All right. ID Tech Bowers.
How you doing, man? Yes. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you should give the court today would be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes, ma'am. If you will, have a seat. Get as close to the mic as you can. For the purposes of the court's record, please state and spell your name.
Nicole Bowers, Nicole, Bowers, Bowers,
Thanks, Ms. Bowers. Can you tell the jury about your position and briefly introduce yourself?
I'm Nicole Bowers. I'm a senior crime scene tech with the Atlanta Police Department. My job duties are to collect and preserve evidence at certain crime scenes.
So, what shift do you work?
Morning watch,
Morning, what time is that?
11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
So you've been up for a while today?
Yes.
Thank you for your patience. So can you tell me, were you called out on September 26th of 2016?
That's correct, yes.
What time were you called out at?
It's about 2:55 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. And do you remember where you reported to?
Emory Hospital.
Emory Hospital. And what did you do once you arrived at the scene?
Once I arrived at the scene, I actually was designated to go to a parking deck to where there was a vehicle that I had to photograph there at the hospital.
Okay. And one moment, Your Honor. Sorry about that. So once you said you located the vehicle in a parking deck?
Correct.
So once you located the vehicle, what did you do?
Once I located the vehicle, I was in the parking deck and I started taking overalls of the area that the vehicle was located at.
Was there anyone else in the deck near the vehicle?
Not at the time, just myself and another APD officer that was sitting on the vehicle.
And what does sitting on a vehicle mean?
Meaning that he was just watching the vehicle there to make sure no one came up to the vehicle, to make sure nobody contaminated or touched the vehicle at that time.
So to your knowledge, the vehicle had not been tampered with when you took
From my
pictures?
knowledge, once I arrived on scene.
Okay. Were you able to take the pictures from the inside of the vehicle?
No, not at that time.
Okay, why is that?
The vehicle was locked.
And was there a key that you could find?
Not at the time, because it was just, once, like I said, once I arrived, there was no one else there that had a key there.
So the pictures, where were they taken from? Through the window?
Through the window glass, correct.
Okay. So I'm going to show you what's been marked 181 through 199. 198 is already admitted into evidence. It's also 319, 321.
I'm sorry, my bad, because you're doing these something's already admitted. You have 198 through,
I have 181 through 199, but in that pile that I'm showing her, 198 is already admitted.
okay.
And then 319, 321, 323. And I'm also showing her 261 and 262, which have already been admitted.
Okay, I got all that. Thank you.
As you're flipping through them, do these images look familiar to you?
Yes, they do.
How do they look familiar to you?
These are the photos that I took at the parking deck of that said morning.
Okay. And you process them, you put them together?
Correct.
Okay. And have you had a chance to look at these before you came here?
Just my photos that I had.
And did you have opportunity to take pictures inside the hospital as well?
Yes, that's correct.
What pictures did you take inside the hospital?
I took the pictures of the victim in the hospital.
In the room
Yes,
On the
where
back.
she was located, yes.
Okay. So, Your Honor, at this time, I'm tendering exhibits 181 through 199, but not 198 because it's already in, 319, 321, 323.
Okay. Mr. Hart? Sure. Is this the 300 series? Yep. 323, I am not.
Okay.
Did I get those numbers right?
Yes.
I think so? Okay.
All right, so I'm going to show these pictures to you. You'll see it pop up on your screen in front. Can you tell us what this is?
That's the first photo that was taken, and that is the Emory entrance before me entering the apartment deck.
Okay. And when you're taking pictures, is there a certain reason why you take them?
Yes, there is. When taking a crime scene photograph of a certain scene, you want to start off to tell the story of how it began. So you want to start off with your location first to tell the story, to start off to let you know where the location started, of where my crime scene pictures are actually being photographed from.
So can you tell the jury what's in this picture?
This next photo is the parking deck location. So it's just an overall showing me actually working my way to there.
And in this next picture, can you tell us what this is?
That's the level ground that we were on, which the vehicle is located in level B.
Okay. I'm going to show you a series of pictures. Can you tell me what this is?
That's the vehicle that was
Stop
located.
for a second.
I'm not making an objection, or I'm making an observation. When we say, what does this one show you? The record doesn't identify which one it might be. So
I agree. It's helpful if you want it. It's up to you.
Sure.
But for record purposes, if you reference the exhibit number that is helpfully affixed to the photo,
Yes.
that'll help with record purposes. Thank you, Mr. Harvey.
This is good, thank you. So can you tell me what's in exhibit 184?
This is the photo of the Ford Expedition truck that I photographed that was located in parking deck.
Okay. Same level as before?
Correct, yes.
And this is marked as exhibit 186. What is this?
The same vehicle, and this is the driver's side of the vehicle.
And can you describe for the jurors what you see in 187?
This is the rear of the vehicle. Once we approach the area that I have to take photos of the vehicle, we do a 360 around the vehicle just to get observation of the vehicle that we're actually taking photos of.
Okay. And is 188 a closer shot?
Correct,
What
of the
you-
tag.
Of the tag. Can you read out what's on the tag?
TCU alumni. You want the license plate number also?
Yes, please.
Yes. CBU 5751.
So after you've done a 360 of the vehicle, do you guys start taking pictures inside of the vehicle?
Correct. If we can gain entry at that time.
Can you tell us what's on exhibit 191?
This is the front passenger seat from the outside of the vehicle, which I took the photo from the window, which is showing that the items that I can see in the front seat of the vehicle.
Okay, and what items do you see here? If you can briefly describe for the jury.
There's a black hat. There appears to be a CD case on the seat, and a pair of sunglasses, which is to the side of the left side of the seat.
Anything else?
Water bottles.
And what was the reason of you taking pictures starting exactly here? Or were you just doing a 360 of the entire vehicle?
Just a 360 of the vehicle.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 192. Can you tell the jury what angle this is from?
This is from the driver's side, front seat, just to show another direction of the other side of the vehicle, inside.
Okay, and can you see the center console?
Correct.
Okay. And now this angle, exhibit 193, can you describe kind of the contents of the car that you observed?
This is the rear of the vehicle, and the contents that I was taking the overall of the back seat of the vehicle, which appeared to be a purse and what, at that moment, that I can see that was the handle of a weapon that was underneath the purse.
Can you tell the jurors what you see over here?
There was a bag that is in the back of the seat that I did photograph at the time that had items inside of the bag.
And specific, did you know what the items were?
Not at that moment.
Okay, and do you see anything else in the back seat?
Which was the phone cord that was hanging out in papers. That's what I can identify at the time that I took the photo.
Okay. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 194. Can you describe what you see here?
Yes, that was a close-up photo that I took of the item that was located under the purse in the back seat.
That's through a closed glass window.
Yes.
Nice camera.
And the next series of photos, this is 195. What angle can you describe the angle to the jurors?
Yes, this angle is again from the front seat of the passenger seat. What I was trying to do here was just try to get a closer view and a side view of the front seat just to show any defects or anything that I could observe at the time that I took the photo.
So when you arrived to the vehicle, had someone already told you where to find the defects, or did you look for them yourself?
I did it myself. I looked for them myself.
Okay. And so you're saying that this is part of the story. What part of the story were you trying to tell with this picture?
Just to tell where what appeared to be a defect in the front passenger seat, preferably at the time knowing that that was where the victim was actually sitting.
Okay. This is State Exhibit 196. What is this picture?
That is a closer photo that I took of the front seat just to show the defect in the front seat of the passenger seat, just to get a closer look.
And State's Exhibit 197.
That was, again, a picture of the rear seat. And that was the rear seat of the passenger seat. From my observation, I observed a bottle, so preferably I couldn't get into the vehicle, so I just observed anything that I would think that would needed to be photographed at that time that would be very pertinent to the case. So at that time, I did see a wine bottle, and I could see a defect above the wine bottle.
And is States 198 a closer version of that picture?
Yes, correct.
So after you took pictures, or you photographed the scene and the parking deck, you said you had an opportunity to go inside the hospital?
That's correct.
And did you photograph pictures of the victim?
That is correct.
And where was she located in the hospital?
Not sure of the location, but they did walk me to a room where they had the victim in the room.
And was she still hooked up to any of the medical equipment?
Not at the time that I arrived, no.
Okay. So can you tell us what 199 is?
This was the room location, again, telling the story as I walked into the hospital where she was actually located, which was room number 12.
Okay. And then this is States 319. Can you tell me what you see here?
Yes, that is the body of the victim.
Okay, so when you approached her in the room, she was just on the bed.
Correct.
Okay. This is States 262. Can you tell the jury what this is?
This is a facial profile photo that we take of our victims. This is the victim that I was photographing at the time.
Okay. And then States 261. Can you describe what this is?
Crime scene 10 factors.
crime scene tech Chris Troudot.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you will give to court today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, sir. If you will, have a seat. Get as close to the mic as you can. For the purposes of the court's record, please state and spell your name.
My name is Christopher Troudot, spelled CHRISTOPHER, TRAUGOTT.
Good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury again by stating your name and where you're currently employed?
My name is Christopher Troudot. I'm a crime scene supervisor at the City of Atlanta Police Department. I've been in the City of Atlanta Police Department since 2012.
And you said you are a crime scene supervisor?
Correct.
And do you have to have any type of special training or complete any courses to become a crime scene technician?
Yes, I've got a bachelor's degree from the University of Central Florida in criminal justice.
I'm sorry, what?
Central Florida.
You need to slow down a little bit so the court reporter can keep up. Thank you.
I can do that. I also have a post-certification from GIPSTIP, Georgia Public Safety Training Center.
And you said you've been with Atlanta Police Department since 2012?
Correct.
Were you employed in law enforcement prior to working at Atlanta Police Department?
No, ma'am.
And as a crime scene technician, are you post-certified?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you carry a weapon?
No, ma'am.
And were you employed as a crime scene technician on September 25th or 26th of 2016?
I believe that the date I was called was September 27th.
Okay. And you said you were called on September 27th by whom?
Detective Darren Smith.
And when you're called by the detective, what was your purpose for a meeting with him that day?
He wanted me to process a vehicle that was located at the city annex.
Okay. And where's the city annex located?
3493 Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway, Atlanta, Georgia.
And do you recall the victim's name in this, that you were, which case you were going to process the scene for?
I have in my report Tex McIver.
Now, after when you spoke with Detective Smith, did he give you any type of background or any information about the case that he was investigating?
Prior to me arriving at the scene, I was not familiar with the case. He directed me which parts he wanted to process and what to focus on, but other than that, I had no knowledge of the case.
The state at this time moves to introduce state exhibits 89, 90, 91, 93, 101, 104 through 106, 108 through 114, 116 through 124, 126, 127, and 128, 168 and 169, 171, 174, and 177 through 180.
That's a lot of exhibits. Are they all photographs?
I'm not going to show all of them. But
My
yes.
question is, are they all photographs?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Harvey, have you had an opportunity to review those?
I've had an opportunity to review those, but I apologize because I couldn't follow the numbering that they were handed to me just briefly.
Let me share with you what I've got to make sure we're on the same page, unless that's not your question.
Yeah, I don't have any objection to the photographs. I just couldn't follow
Okay.
the numbering because they were shown to me in a different. Yeah, you had a cheat sheet.
Yeah, but if you want to know what it was on there, that's the same numbers.
But I wrote it down and you gave them to me.
So I've got 89, you've got no objection. Okay. I will admit and make sure this is the universe that you're open for. 89 through 91, 93, 101, 104 through 106, 108 through 114, 116 through 124, 126 through 128, 168 169, 171, 174, and 177 through 180. Does that work for you, Ms. Griffin? Those numbers? They're admitted.
Permission to publish.
You have it.
And when you arrived at the annex, what was the first thing that you did?
The first thing I always do is I consult the detective on scene to ask him, what he's looking for, what to focus on, what some of the background is. But then always after that is photographs. You don't do or touch anything until you've photographed it.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's been introduced to State's Exhibit number 169. And if you could please describe why you took this photo here.
That is just a photo of the exterior of the vehicle.
And when you're taking your photos, do you normally just take photos of the entire vehicle?
I usually do all four sides as well as the license plate and the VIN number.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what's been introduced to State's Exhibit number 89. And what does that show?
That's the rear of the vehicle.
And why do you take a photo of the license tag?
Just so we can identify the license plate and match it with the vehicle.
I'm going to show you what's been introduced to State's Exhibit number 91. And what does this show?
This is the sticker located on the inside of the vehicle, which clearly displays the make, model, as well as the VIN number.
And what is the purpose of this photo?
This just is further identification of the said vehicle.
I'm going to show you what's been introduced to State's Exhibit number 104. And what does this photo depict?
This is a photo of the interior of the back passenger seat of the vehicle.
And I see two numbers in there, 1 and 2. What are the placards for?
The number 1 is indicating a handgun inside of a plastic bag on the back seat of the vehicle. Number 2 is a defect that was located in the front passenger seat of the vehicle, the back of it.
I'm going to show you what's been introduced to State's Exhibit number 105. And at this time, when you're taking the photos, do you have any background about the case at this point?
Not any more than I already had.
Okay. And is Detective Smith guiding you on where to take the pictures?
He's letting me know what he's looking for.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been introduced to State's Exhibit number 101. And what does that show?
That is a defect from the back seat of the vehicle.
101.
I'm going to show you what's been introduced to State's Exhibit number 93. And what is that?
That is the front passenger seat on the passenger side of the vehicle.
And as we're looking at that photo, if you look at, I guess, the arms area, or like right beside the back of the seat, there's a white discoloration on the sides. Did you test that substance, or was that the camera flash?
I was not directed to do any testing of that or to do any swabbing of it, so I can't testify to that.
Okay. Did you make a note of it?
No, ma'am.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 174. Could you please explain the difference between this photo, number 174, and State's Exhibit number 93?
This photo would be after we started our preliminary search of the vehicle to find anything. And after we removed the hat, we discovered a projectile underneath it.
Okay, and what is a projectile?
A projectile is the part of a bullet in the gun that is actually fired.
And in this photo, I see you've marked 3 and 4. What are the numbers to represent for your purposes?
Number 3 is going to be the defect located in the front of the seat of the vehicle. And the number 4 is going to be the projectile.
Okay. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 177, and what does that depict?
That is a close-up of the projectile.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 168, and what does that depict?
That is a leather holster that was located in the center console.
And when you say it's a leather holster, did you remove the contents from that console?
Yes.
And did you collect any evidence from the crimes from the truck that day?
Yes.
And what items did you collect?
I collected the firearm from the back seat that was wrapped in the plastic bag. I collected the projectile in the front seat. I also collected the leather holster.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibits number 386, 387, and 388. And when you collect the items, what do you do with them after you collect them?
It depends on what is necessary. Sometimes they're put in the property for later. Other times they're sent to various labs for testing.
Okay. And do you recognize those items?
Yep, I see my handwriting on the front as well as my signature on this one. My handwriting and signature on this one as well. My handwriting and my signature are located on this one as well.
Okay. And did you package those items?
Yes, ma'am.
And were they assigned a case number?
Yes.
And could you please read to the jury what that case number is?
16269-2428.
And did you submit these items for any type of testing?
The firearm was sent to the GBI lab. The projectile was sent to the GBI lab with the firearm. And the leather holster was just submitted.
And do these items appear to be altered or damaged in any type of way?
They've clearly been opened and repackaged since I've seen them, hence the blue tape.
Okay. And repackaged by whom, do you know?
I would imagine either this one says the Atlanta Police Department lab, but I also imagine.
Can I object to the imagination?
Yeah, just, we can't hear you when you're talking into the baseboard, so sorry.
So if he doesn't know, he doesn't know.
Do the labels have any type of label as to say who put the blue tape on there?
It says DOFS firearms evidence.
It says what?
DOFS firearms evidence.
And I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 120. And what is that?
That would be the handgun I collected from the backseat of the vehicle.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's already been introduced to State's Exhibit number 369. If you could open that.
Okay.
Do you recognize the item in there?
Yes, this appears to be the firearm I collected.
And I'm going to show you what's been introduced to State's Exhibit number 124. And what is this a photo of?
That is a photo of the serial number as well as the model number.
Is this serial number and model number the same as the gun that you have there?
DCH 5796. It's the one on here. So yes, it appears to be the same.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been introduced to State's Exhibit number 122. Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am. Well, there's a bit of a glare, but yeah, I can see it.
If I can look at that. State's Exhibit number 123. Is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you could, please describe what we are looking at.
This is the cylinder that was opened and kept the exact same position as where it was inside the weapon.
Okay. And we see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 casings, I guess.
Cartridges would be the the appropriate term.
Okay, and I see that one of them looks different than the other four. Could you
The top casing has a dimple in the primer.
could touch it?
The
Okay,
dimple in the primer indicates that this round has been fired. And this was located in the top of the firearm, indicating that that was the last round was fired.
okay. And from you looking at that photo, can you determine if all of those cartridges are the same?
I believe the 3 of them are the same and 2 of them are not.
And when I'm saying the same, are they the same brand?
I don't believe they're the same brand, although it's kind of hard to read I believe the 2 silver-colored ones are Federal, and the 3 brass-colored ones are Winchester, but this picture's a little blurry.
Let's see if I can. You see that better?
Yes.
And if you could, what did you say earlier? I'm sorry.
The 2 silver-colored ones here, Federal, and the 3 brass-colored ones here, and here are Winchester.
Okay. And you said that the dimple indicated that there had been 1 round fired.
Correct.
So what would eject from the gun?
The projectile.
Okay. And you located 1 projectile in the front seat.
Correct.
I'm going to show you what's been introduced as State's Exhibit number 178. Could you show me what we're looking at here?
This was a trajectory rod that was passed through the defect in the back of the seat as well as the defect in the front of the seat.
I'm going to show you what's been introduced as State's Exhibit number 117. If you could describe what we're looking at here.
That was the front of the trajectory rod passing through the defect in the front passenger seat.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been introduced as State's Exhibit number 126. And what are we looking at here?
That is a measuring tape held up next to the trajectory rod showing the height from the floor of the vehicle.
And what was the purpose of obtaining a measurement from the floor of the vehicle?
Just showing dimensions of where the defect was located in relationship to the vehicle.
And how far up was it? Can you see from that photo?
This photo is blurry.
Can't see? Let me try this one.
It appears. Go
I'll
back.
bring it to
You
you.
were better before.
Yeah, I'll bring it to you.
Thank you. This appears to be at the 1 foot 7.5 inch mark, otherwise 19.5 inches.
And you learned this was and that is from the floor to the rod?
Correct.
Okay. And you understood this was a possible gunshot in the car?
Possibly, yes.
And did you test area number 2 for any soot or any gunshot residue or anything like that?
Negative.
Did you do any type of swabbings around this area to check for any type of gun particles or soot or anything?
No, ma'am.
Is it? And what types of what is soot?
You mean what is ejected from a gun? Aside from the projectile, there's generally what's known as gunshot residue, which is a small particulate that is ejected with the projectile.
Okay, and is this something that you can see with your naked eye?
Not typically, but sometimes.
And do you ever test for gunshot residue?
Yes, I do.
But you didn't on this occasion?
Nope.
And why not?
I was not directed by the detective. The detective generally gives me what he's looking for and what he's trying to find out. As he did not direct me to do a GSR, I did not perform one.
Okay. Now, how far again did you say it was from the floor to the top, to the rod, to the bolt hole?
19.5 inches.
Yeah, another question?
Mr. Hardy. Breaking your silence.
Those photographs. Yeah.
Ms. Griffin, the photos you were working with,
Oh, sorry.
When were you first called to process this particular vehicle?
You can speak up, please.
When were you first called to process this vehicle?
I received the call at 10:30 a.m.
You can look at that, you can't read from that, I've already been told that. If you need to refresh your recollection, you can look at your report. If it refreshes your recollection, then you can tell us. If it doesn't, you can say, I don't remember.
You didn't do anything wrong, but going forward, if you're asked a question and you don't recall it, let us know if you don't recall, and then if someone wants to direct you to your report or anything else they may want to show you, that would be how we proceed, okay? Thank you.
Do you recall when it was that you were first called to process this vehicle?
I received the call at 10:30 a.m.
On what date?
September 27th.
September 27th. And you processed this at APD?
At the crime scene annex.
Right. So you understand the vehicle had been moved to the crime scene annex, correct?
Yes.
Do you know how it was moved to there?
I don't know specifically.
Do you know who moved it there?
I imagine one of the tow companies, but I don't know specifically.
Okay, right. Just tell me you don't know. Do you know when it was moved?
I do not know.
Do you know whether or not anybody? Well, do you know when the vehicle? You don't know where it was moved from. Sorry, correct?
Correct.
Were you given any information about who had been in and or out of the vehicle prior to the time that you processed it?
The only information I would have been given would have been the victim information or possibly the suspect information,
But nothing else?
no.
All right, so you didn't know if the vehicle had been driven after the event in question?
No.
You don't know how long it had been driven after the event in question?
No.
You don't know how many people had been in and out of the vehicle after the event in question?
No.
You don't know whether it had been driven by, for example, a valet at Emory Hospital?
No.
Okay. You don't know whether a valet had gone back into the vehicle to retrieve anything from the vehicle prior to the time that you processed it?
No. I don't know anything about the vehicle prior to when I...
Okay. Are you familiar with something called Locard's principle?
No.
The principle of transference?
Yes.
Okay. Transference being any time two surfaces come into contact with each other, they leave something on the surface.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. So that we know that if people come in and out of a particular crime scene, for example, there is always something that is left behind.
Okay.
Would you agree?
Generally, yes.
You're the crime scene guy,
Yes.
right? Okay. So that one of the things that is done, and we've heard a little bit about this, is an effort to preserve the scene, correct? To preserve any crime scene.
Yes.
Because you don't want people going in and out of it, correct?
Correct.
Because it may change the scene for one, correct?
Yes.
It may disturb the parts of the scene, correct?
Yes.
And there may be elements that are left there that were not there when the event occurred, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But let's start from the principle that you don't know about any of that prior to the time that on the 27th at some time you were called upon to process the scene, correct?
Correct.
All right. And the scene in this case was a vehicle, right?
Correct.
You understood that there had already been pictures taken of the vehicle prior to the time you were called on the scene, correct?
Not necessarily. I did not know if the vehicle had been processed at the scene or not. I was not familiar with who processed it or how they processed it.
All right, so you didn't even know whether anybody else, any other crime scene tech had come to process it?
That's correct.
The photographs that you took were taken on at the APD crime scene location, correct?
At the annex, yes.
At the annex. Was Detective Smith there with you when you processed the vehicle?
Yes.
He can tell you, here's what I'm looking for, take pictures of this, but do you not have any independent discretion at all to say, I think it's important, let's take a shot of this, let's take a shot of that?
I can make suggestions, however, the ultimate decision ultimately lies on him.
Okay. And some of the time, if you're at a scene, you make a suggestion, boy, I think we ought to take a picture of this, I think this will show that, right?
I can do that, yes.
Okay. And in this particular instance, did you make any suggestions about what to do?
I don't recall.
Would you have any notes that would indicate whether or not you made any suggestions, you made some determinations to process it any differently than you were requested?
No, I wouldn't have any notes on that.
All right. And I have a number of photographs here. One of the things that you do is take photographs before you place markers on what I guess either you determine or somebody else determines for you is a place to take a marker, to place a marker.
Correct.
You've shown us a couple of markers, correct?
Correct.
And let me show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 101. Do you recognize that?
Yes, that's the photo.
And we talked a little bit before about, you answered questions about something called gunshot residue, correct?
Correct.
Gunshot residue is the residue that comes out of the barrel of the gun. It can be gases, it can be some types of chemicals, correct?
Correct.
That are expelled, gases both burnt and unburnt, that are expelled from the end of a barrel when a firearm is discharged, correct?
Correct.
There is also in a revolver something called cylinder gap. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you got to say yes instead of going like that, okay? And gases are similarly expelled from, in a revolver, the cylinder as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And those gases and particles can be distributed on a surface after a gun is discharged, correct?
Correct.
And some of the things that you can look for, what chemicals can you look for in determining whether something is gunshot residue, correct?
No, I do not have that training.
You don't know anything about what you're looking for?
I can do a GSR test, and I send it off to a lab, and they're the ones who make that determination, not me.
Great. So there is a test that you can perform to determine, at least a swabbing. You take a swabbing?
It's more of a sticky pad. It's the whole kit that's put together by the GBI.
A sticky pad. You take a sticky pad and you would put it around a entrance, what you think to be an entrance hole, to stick and gather what might be gunshot residue there, correct?
That's correct.
And that would preserve the fact that there's gunshot residue, correct? Gotta say yes.
Yes.
And when you've taken courses in preserving it, when you learned how to do it, did they tell you, you just ought to do this for no reason? What did you understand you were doing it for?
My understanding was it was to determine whether a gunshot had occurred in the location.
In the location?
Correct.
And the distance?
I was not trained in that, no.
I'm not telling.
You asked me what I learned.
Okay.
I did not learn that.
I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not being clear. So you're completely unaware that the pattern and presence of gunshot residue on either clothing or a seat or a carpet or a wall or a shirt can be used to calculate the distance, the muzzle to target distance.
I'm not aware of that particular thing, no.
Really?
Because I've only had a training in collection of gunshot residue. I not have any training on the distance from a gun or anything like that.
I'm not asking you about...
Objection, Your Honor.
He's answered your question a couple of times. For whatever reason, you're not connected. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but he's been very clear in his answer to your question.
Okay, well, all right. Perhaps it's my fault. And in this particular instance, there was no request for you to take a GSR test on the back of this seat.
That's correct.
And in fact, what you did was you put a marker right there close to the defect, correct?
Correct.
And that marker has, of course, a sticky back.
It does.
Otherwise, you couldn't stick it on something, right? You got to say yes. You
Yes.
can't just, all right. And if it has a sticker there, it could possibly pick up any gunshot residue there, correct?
It could.
And that would be something that would actually, if you put the sticky on the defect close enough to the defect, it could pick up gunshot residue that would have been there, correct?
That is correct.
All right, because it's a sticky surface. Did you take any measurements of the defect?
I did not.
Okay. Nobody asked you to take any measurements of the defect.
That is correct.
All right. Now the bag that you seized, correct?
Correct.
The bag, when you seized it, you packaged the bag separately from the weapon,
That's correct.
and the bag was
No, that is not correct.
So if you're consulting something,
I have to consult my report.
Yeah, that's
okay.
I only have my report that I collected the firearm. I do not have that I collected the bag as well.
Okay. Did anybody else process the vehicle? To your knowledge?
I can't speak to that. I don't know.
You seized the weapon you've told us about, correct?
Correct.
When you took photographs of the weapon was partially inside a bag. You've shown us that.
That is correct.
You seized a projectile, correct?
That is correct.
And that projectile, I guess, according to the photographs you showed us, first when you looked in, a hat was on top of it, correct?
That is correct.
Couldn't see the projectile until you moved it, correct?
That is correct.
You also at that particular time couldn't see what was inside the seat where this defect was, correct? You didn't open up, unzip the seat, the inside of the seat,
No, I did not.
to take any pictures of the inside of the seat to see what was there, correct?
No, I did not.
All right. It was only after you moved the hat on the front seat that the projectile became visible, correct?
Correct.
And that was something you collected, correct?
Correct.
The bag you didn't collect,
I'm not sure. I don't have it in my notes, is what I can tell you.
all right? Well, if you collected something, one would presume you would ordinarily have it in your notes, correct?
Correct.
Because you take notes of whatever you do as a crime scene tech.
That's correct.
You would take notes of how many photographs you took,
Yes.
a general description of the photographs,
Correct.
a time and place at which you took those photographs,
Correct.
a case number, correct?
Correct.
And that kind of information.
Correct.
So if you had collected the bag at that particular point, it would be in your notes.
Yes, it should be.
Do you see it in your notes?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. On the page of my report specifically for the firearm, it says firearm wrapped in bag. So yes, I did collect it. I did collect the bag with the firearm.
All right, so I think you showed us this firearm. The firearm has the bag or a bag?
It has a bag. It looks like the bag that I put in my photos.
But you don't know whether this is the bag or it's not the bag.
This box has been opened and repackaged since I have packaged it, so I cannot speak clearly as to whether or not it would be the same bag.
Okay. When you took the bag with the gun, who did you turn it over to?
The GBI lab.
You took it to the GBI lab?
We have someone who does the GBI run every day. I put it into the secure locker where it would have been taken to the GBI lab.
And then it would be either that or both of those things would be taken to the GBI lab, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The decision to seize particular items, was that yours as well?
No, that would have been the detective.
Right. And in states number 116, we see a wine bottle, correct?
That's correct. It appears to be a wine bottle.
Or a bottle.
A bottle of some sort.
Of some kind. Was that bottle seized?
Not to my knowledge.
Did anybody ask you to seize that particular bottle?
No.
Do you know whether or not that bottle was ever seized?
I do not.
Do you know whether that bottle was full or empty?
I do not.
Do you know what was in that bottle?
I do not.
Do you know the distance between the back of the seat and where the back of the pouch that is holding the wine bottle? Did you take those measurements?
No.
That bottle, as you see on State's Exhibit number, this is 114, protrudes into the space in the back, correct?
I'm sorry.
It goes into the space where if somebody is sitting in the back.
Okay.
If the holder that where the bottle.
You mean it protrudes into the back seat? Yes. What you mean? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Correct.
According to this photo, yes.
Sure. Well, that's the photo that you took, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm asking you is did you take any measurements as to how far back that I don't know what
Are you asking about the way the pocket
thank you. Good.
sticks back?
Thank you. Yes, the pocket. How far back the pocket comes out from the back of the seat.
No, I did not.
I'm also showing you State's Exhibit 123, which shows the 5 rounds, correct?
That's correct.
You told us that there are 2 different types of rounds in there, clearly, correct?
Two different makes. There's different companies that make the round.
2 different companies. Are they 2 different kinds? Or do you know?
They clearly say 38 special on all of them, so they would all be the same caliber.
All right. Well, one is made by Federal, correct?
Correct.
One is made by Winchester, correct?
Correct.
even if they're made by different companies and called the same thing, you know that they may be different, correct?
Yes.
They may have different kinds of projectiles, correct?
Correct.
They may have different kinds of ammunition inside them, different content of ammunition, correct?
Correct.
And they may have different weights of ammunition, correct?
Correct.
And they may burn differently when discharged, correct?
Correct.
Were you asked at all to check the cylinder for gunshot, cylinder gap gunshot residue?
I was not.
Showing you 108. And remember, I asked you if there is a pattern of gunshot residue. If you put a sticky in some form close to the defect, it may pick up some of the gunshot residue, right?
It can.
Other than the, you took some measurements of the height from the floor to the defect, correct?
I took a measurement from the floor to the rod where it was sticking out.
From the floor to the rod,
Yes,
not the floor to the defect.
that is correct.
How about the floor to the top of the seat?
I did not.
Do you know whether or not that seat, its inclination had been moved at any time prior to the time that you processed the vehicle?
I have no knowledge as to the state of the vehicle at all prior to my process of the vehicle.
Okay. The shot that we saw, let's see, with any measurements. This is the one that you told us about from the floor to the rod?
Correct.
Any measurement from the back of the seat to the front of the seat?
No.
This shot is taken from outside the vehicle, correct?
I'm taking it from the doorway.
Vehicle. That is something in which there were spatial limitations that might be important, correct?
Correct.
And again, there was no request to take any measurements inside in conjunction with those spatial limitations inside the vehicle.
Correct.
There was, I think you told us, two defects that you took pictures of. One from the rear on the back of the front passenger seat, correct?
Correct.
One in the front passenger seat, correct?
Correct.
On the front of it.
Yes.
Is that right? We just saw a picture of the back. When you saw the vehicle, you showed us a picture of the front defect, the defect in the front seat. That's the front of the seat, correct?
Correct.
Did you see, this is State's Exhibit number 110, State's Exhibit number 111 is a wider view. That's the front seat defect, correct?
Correct.
There wasn't any testing for blood, correct?
Correct.
Do you see any blood surrounding State's Exhibit number 111?
As I am not a medical professional, I cannot testify to the presence of blood.
Say that again, as a blood professional?
I am not a medical professional. I cannot testify to the presence of blood, nor did I perform a blood test reagent on it.
Well, there wasn't a. That's the way the vehicle or the front seat appeared to you.
Correct.
There were no other liquids or anything that you saw, correct?
Not to my recollection.
Right. There were no pools of any liquid, correct?
Not to my recollection.
I'll pass the witness to you.
Can you redirect?
Now, you said that you were called on September 27th.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Harvey asked you about the plastic bag. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 388. Could you please read the case number on that?
It says plastic bag firearms discovered.
Okay, and are your initials on there?
Yes, my name and initials on here.
And what's the date?
September 27th.
And is it the same case number that is referenced in the report?
Yes.
And what is that?
16269-2428.
Mr. Harvey also asked you about some spatial constraints in your measurements. You measured from the floor to the rod to be 19.5 inches from the floor. Would it change if the door was closed?
No.
And were you asked to remove the seat and send it to the GBI?
No, I was not.
Are you a crime scene reconstructionist?
No, I'm not.
No other questions?
Questions from the jurors for crime scene tech faculty? We'll send them to the left, please.
Is that all?
Thank you. Did you... Holy smokes, everyone okay? Blame me for... It usually is. All right. Did you swab for blood in the vehicle?
No, I did not.
Any follow-up to that? Ms. Griffin?
No follow-up.
Okay. Mr. Barber? No. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. So my thought is we get partway through the next witness before we take an afternoon break. Some of you took a mini break, which was great while we were going through these. Everyone okay for now? You'll let me know if you're not. Next witness.
Your Honor, the state will call Detective Brett Zimbrick.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you should give the court today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes, sir. If you will, get as close to the mic as you can as you're being seated, sir. For the court's record, please state and spell your name.
Brett Zimbrick, B-R-E-T-T-Z-I-M-B-R-I-C-K.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
How you doing?
Fine.
Good. And Your Honor, good afternoon. I don't think I've said that to you.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can you introduce yourself to the jurors by restating your name and tell them how you are currently employed?
My name is Brett Zimbrick, and I am an investigator with the City of Atlanta Police Department. I work in the homicide unit.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors first, how long have you worked for the City of Atlanta Police Department, and how long have you been a detective in the homicide unit?
I've been with the City of Atlanta Police for 32 years, and I've been in the homicide unit since 1993.
And can you tell the jurors, do you have any idea of how many homicide cases you've investigated?
I have no idea.
Like one or two?
Multiple hundreds.
Right. I got a question for you. Of those multiple hundreds, about how many involves the use of guns?
About 75%.
Now, are the homicide cases, well, strike that. Ask you a better question. Explain to the jurors something about your duties and responsibilities there in the homicide unit.
The homicide unit is a unit that is responsible for a wide-ranging group of crimes. We work, obviously, criminal homicides. We are subject to being called out on unexplained deaths. We get called out on suicides, some natural deaths. If body parts are found, they call us. If somebody is kidnapped and not returned, they call us. So it's a group of detectives that have experiences that precinct detectives or other detectives don't have.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, within the homicide unit, how are cases regularly assigned?
There is a rotation that is used in the homicide unit. There are approximately 17 detectives that catch active ongoing cases or fresh cases. Those 17 names are on the board, top to bottom. You catch a case, you go to the bottom and work your way back up. So the unit works 2 8-hour shifts. The overnight is handled by a general investigation squad. So if somebody gets a need arises for a homicide detective overnight, they secure the scene and will call out whoever the lead detective is. The rotation is just that, it's a rotation. If it comes up at Monday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you're number one, it's your case. If it comes up Monday at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're number one, it's your case. So it's just an ongoing rotation.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, currently within the homicide unit, how are you assigned? Are you a part of a regular rotation?
No.
Explain that to the jurors.
There are a group of 5 of us that have been tasked with cold cases and complex cases. We will assist all of the detectives on all of the cases, whether it's a big assist or just running down some things at the crime lab or running a witness down.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, did you, however, though, participate into this homicide investigation?
I did. On the 28th of September of 2017, or 2016, I'm sorry. Darren Smith was in the office and stated that Tex McIver was
Hold on a second. Any objection? Yes, okay. So don't tell us what Darren told you.
Okay.
Okay. But as a result of what Darren told you, what did you do?
I was requested to sit in on an interview.
Okay.
Your last page.
I am running out of paper, man.
Tell you something.
I have been writing
The state has to rest.
a lot.
Fresh pad waiting for us out here.
We've got a whole box of pads. Okay. September 28th, 2016. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So can you tell the jurors, what did you understand was the plan for sitting in on the interview that was to take place that day?
Just to obtain information from Mr. McIver as a result of the incident 2 days prior.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did the defendant come to APD for an interview?
He did.
And did he come alone?
He did not.
And who did he come with?
He was accompanied by 2 attorneys, Mr. Maples and Mr. Leopold.
Can you tell the jurors on September the 28th, 2016, what time did the defendant arrive at the homicide office for his interview?
I believe it was midday, 1 p.m. maybe?
Now, can you give the jurors some idea, the interview, where was it conducted?
The interview took place at Public Safety Headquarters Building, 226 Peachtree Street Southwest. The homicide unit is on the 3rd floor of the building. There are interview rooms where witnesses are interviewed, and then there are interview rooms where defendants are interviewed. The defendant part of the area is obviously a secure area. You have to go through locked doors to get to where you're going to do the interview. The witness area is just off of the main atrium on the 3rd level. All of the rooms have the ability to be audio and video recorded.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors what's the setup inside the room? If you could help them understand, like, how big is it? Are we sitting in a closet, or does it have? We have to stand up.
It's in this particular event or instance, it was one of the interview rooms. There was no custodial interview. It was a non-custodial interview. So it was in the witness room. There's a table, standard 6-foot table, a door, obviously with a glass window, probably 12 feet deep and maybe 9 or 10 feet across. The table sits lengthways. Mr. Leopold was in the corner. Mr. McIver was in the middle. Mr. Maples was closest to the door on that side of the table. And then I was farthest against the wall, and Detective Smith was closest to the door.
Okay. Now, you just used a word that I'd like you to explain for the jurors. You said it was a non-custodial interview. What does that mean?
It means that the individual is not under arrest. The individual is free to get up and say, I've had enough, or I don't want to talk, or I've got better things to do, and the individual has the ability to walk out and hit the front door and off they go. So Mr. McIver was not under arrest. There were no warrants for his arrest. His attorneys obviously understood that, and this was a interview.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did you actually sit in and participate in the interview?
I did.
And can you tell the jurors, was the interview audio recorded?
Detective Smith had his digital audio recorder on the table, and the room itself has a separate audio-video system. So there is a DVD of the interview with audio-video, and there is a separate audio tape recording.
Okay. And so prior to your testimony here today, have you had the opportunity to review the video and the audio recording for the interview for the defendant that you participated in on September the 28th, 2016?
I have, and I just want to clarify that the audio is just a backup. It's a standard backup that we use in the off chance that the video doesn't work. So it's the same. I don't want there to be any confusion that there's two different interviews. It's one interview and there's two different forms of recording.
Right. The video cameras, how many of them are in the room?
Two.
And if you didn't have the digital audio recorder on the table, would the video cameras also pick up the audio?
Yes, there's also a microphone in the wall.
And there's a microphone on the wall. The device on the table was just backup?
Correct.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, perhaps now would be an appropriate time for the instruction from the court, or do you want me to lay a little bit more foundation?
Are you about to get into the instruction?
I'm about to lay the foundation to get it introduced.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm happy to say it just before you play it, but if you want me to talk about it now, that's fine.
Well, otherwise, in direct, I'll have to. Okay. I can get it from you.
That's okay. In a moment, I expect that a portion of the interview will be tendered and played to you all. I say portion because there are parts of the interview that aren't relevant to what you all need to work through. And because of that, I directed the state to redact portions of it. So you may be listening, watching, or both, and it may jump. Someone will be in this position. The next thing, literally the next thing, they're over here. That editing was done in my direction after consulting with attorneys for both sides. It's nothing the police did. It's something that was necessary because of discussions I had with the attorneys to limit, for your consideration, only those parts of the interview that are relevant. So I don't want you to draw any inferences from the fact that you will notice that the interview is choppy.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Approximately approximately how long did the interview last?
The original interview
Yes.
was just about an hour, a little bit more than an hour.
Okay. And with respect to the original interview, in preparation for trial, long before, you've had the opportunity to review the original interview.
I did, yes.
And you can say that the original interview that you reviewed prior to the court's direction to redact it had not been altered, changed, or deleted in any way.
That is correct.
Okay. And along with that original interview, did you have the opportunity to also review the transcript that was produced from the original interview?
Yes.
And you can say that the transcript tracks along with the original interview itself?
It does.
Now, during the course of the interview that you say lasted about an hour originally, did the defendant, Mr. McIver, ever express a desire that he did not want to speak with you all?
No.
Did he ever say, hey, stop recording, stop talking, anything like that?
No.
Did he ever get up and leave the room because he did not want to answer your questions?
No.
He was cooperative?
He was.
Okay. After the interview was completed, can you tell the jurors, was a copy of the interview given to the defense attorneys?
The audio recording that was on the table, a copy of that was provided to counsel prior to them leaving the building. The video system takes 24 hours before you can actually download it to a disk, so they walked with a copy of the audio.
Okay. Now, the court has just instructed the jury with respect to having some portions of the original interview redacted. You heard that instruction, correct?
Yes.
Now, the redacted version of the video of the interview of the defendant, have you had the opportunity to look at it?
I have.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, has pretty much just the irrelevant small talk been taken out?
That is correct.
The portion that you looked at on the redacted version, can you tell the jurors whether or not it is accurate and has not been altered or deleted, subject to the small talk being taken out?
Correct. What was said by parties that were in the room is what's on the redacted portion of the transcript.
Okay. About how long is the redacted video?
Total is about 40 minutes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors on the redacted video who can be seen?
All 5 of us, the ones that I had previously described. I will be in the far left as you look at the screen. Detective Smith will be front left, and it will be Mr. Maples, Mr. McIver, and Mr. Leopold.
Okay. And on the video, we will hear the voices of all 5?
That is correct.
At various points?
Sometimes all at the same time.
All right. Along with the redacted video, was a redacted transcript also produced?
It was.
And prior to your testimony here today, have you had a chance to actually look at the redacted transcript to make sure that it conforms accurately with the redacted video?
I have.
And in fact, you've got a document in front of you. Is that a copy of the redacted transcript?
It is.
And does that transcript allow you to follow along with the interview that can be seen in the video?
It does.
Show you a series of exhibits. State's exhibit number 389, Your Honor, for identification purposes. State's exhibit number 390, 391, and 392. Detective Zimbrick, can you tell the jurors and the judge, do you recognize State's exhibit number 389?
I do.
How do you recognize it?
It's the copy of the interview done with Mr. McIver, myself, Detective Smith.
Is that the original version?
It is.
And do you see your initials or anything affixed to that disc?
I do. I initialed it upon my review.
Okay. And as you stated earlier, it fairly and accurately reflects the entire interview.
It does.
Okay. State's Exhibit number 390. Can you tell the judge and the jury what is State's Exhibit 390?
It's a copy of the redacted interview that was done for this hearing.
Okay. And do you see your initials affixed to that disc?
They are, and that was done upon completion of review.
And subject to the redactions done of the irrelevant small talk, does that redacted version reflect what was said during the interview?
Yes.
What is State's Exhibit number 391?
391 is a transcript of the original full-length interview with Mr. McIver.
Okay. And what is State's Exhibit 392?
It's a transcript of the redacted version of the same interview.
Okay. At this time, Your Honor, I would tender State's Exhibits number 389, 390, 391, and 392. With this proviso, I would ask the court to accept 389, the original, just so they can be made a part of the record. Of course, it would not go out with the jurors. And State's Exhibit number 391, which I believe is the transcript created from the original interview, that would be made a part of the record only, would not go out with the jurors. But with respect to State's Exhibit number 390 and 392, I would ask the court to admit those and allow the state to publish them to the jury.
So
If I have my numbers
I'll
right.
hear from Mr. Harvey in a minute. I don't mind, based on what I've heard, admitting all four. I don't know, other than during the playing of 390, that the jury would ever have 392. You haven't said anything contrary to that, and we can work through at a later time what else might happen with 392. 389 and 391 won't really see the light of day in this setting, but would be made part of the record.
Right.
With those provisos, Mr. Harvey, any objection to those four exhibits being admitted?
Other, of course, we've already worked through it. That's why we have these four exhibits. No, with the same cautionary instruction that you gave with regard to the other audio.
And I'll give that once.
Right, sure.
Yes, we have the transcripts already copied and prepared, with the first and last pages written off already.
Believe that. Learning. Okay.
We learned.
So they're admitted.
Okay.
For the purposes described.
Yep.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you're about to get, would you mind, you didn't have to do this yesterday, Deputy Murphy. Deputy Kane did real well. We may want to just re-enlist him, but he was able to get one transcript per juror pretty quickly, like a card deal. So if you could, it's a card deal. If you get those. And ladies and gentlemen, there's a sticky note on that one.
It just says jurors.
Oh, okay. Saying, can you take the...
Do you recall when it was that you were first called to process this vehicle?
I received the call at 10:30 a.m.
On what date?
September 27th.
September 27th. And you processed this at APD?
At the crime scene annex.
Right. So you understand the vehicle had been moved to the crime scene annex, correct?
Yes.
Do you know how it was moved to there?
I don't know specifically.
Do you know who moved it there?
I imagine one of the tow companies, but I don't know specifically.
Okay, right. Just tell me you don't know. Do you know when it was moved?
I do not know.
Do you know whether or not anybody? Well, do you know when the vehicle? You don't know where it was moved from. Sorry, correct?
Correct.
Were you given any information about who had been in and or out of the vehicle prior to the time that you processed it?
The only information I would have been given would have been the victim information or possibly the suspect information.
But nothing else?
No.
All right, so you didn't know if the vehicle had been driven after the event in question?
No.
You don't know how long it had been driven after the event in question?
No.
You don't know how many people had been in and out of the vehicle after the event in question?
No.
You don't know whether it had been driven by, for example, a valet at Emory Hospital?
No.
Okay. You don't know whether a valet had gone back into the vehicle to retrieve anything from the vehicle prior to the time that you processed it.
No, I don't know anything about the vehicle prior to what I heard.
Okay. Isn't there, are you familiar with something called Locard's principle?
No.
The principle of transference?
Yes.
Okay. Transference being any time two surfaces come into contact with each other, they leave something on the surface.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. So that we know that if people come in and out of a particular crime scene, for example, there is always something that is left behind.
Okay.
Would you agree?
Generally, yes.
You're the crime scene guy,
Yes.
right? Okay. So that one of the things that is done, and we've heard a little bit about this, is an effort to preserve the scene, correct? To preserve any crime scene.
Yes.
Because you don't want people going in and out of it, correct?
Correct.
Because it may change the scene for one, correct?
Yes.
It may disturb the parts of the scene, correct?
Yes.
And there may be elements that are left there that were not there when the event occurred, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But let's start from the principle that you don't know about any of that prior to the time that on the 27th at some time you were called upon to process the scene, correct?
Correct.
All right. In the scene in this case was a vehicle, right?
Correct.
About our forecast that we're going to likely go into April, so just you may want to be a little further back for jurors. Deputy Kane will frisk them before they come out here. I will not be seeking their input now. I will be letting them know that we're contemplating two options. One would be we just power on through, and the other would be that we take a break because some of the jurors who I believe are actually in this group of 15 said, I have a conflict for that first week in April. So we're not asking anyone to move anything around. We're asking them to think about what works best for them. They can do that over this evening so that tomorrow morning we can get their input and make a final decision, because I know everyone has things they're going to have to start moving around related to this case and not. So we'll try to get closure on that as soon as possible. I just want to let you know that's what we're going to talk about now. Let's bring them in, please. If you stand between me and them, great.
I got you there.
This is my front.
All rise for the jury.
Jacob Zimmer, you can come on in.
Jury's all present in count, Your Honor.
Thank you, JB. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We need to talk logistics for a minute before Mr. Rucker continues his direct examination with Detective Zimmer. As I suspect some of you have begun to assess, as you have very diligently been returning day in and day out and working through this process along with us, it is looking less likely that we will be able to get you the case for your deliberations by the end of next week. And so what I'm going to ask you all individually and then as a group, individually tonight as you talk with those who depend on you, and then in the morning when you meet as a group, you can start the conversation this evening as you're wrapping up, to consider two options. One option would be we press on, and so we would go through March 30th, and then Monday, April 2, everyone would be back, and we would continue uninterrupted. That's plan A. Plan B I think recognizes conflicts that some of you may have flagged all along, which is their spring break for all of Atlanta public schools and maybe many other organizations. We would take a week off. It would be a week where if you had something planned, you could go do it. If you didn't have anything planned, you could return to what now may not seem like your normal life, but your old life. You could return to it for a week. If work meant you had to travel, you could travel, but we would take a sabbatical from this, and we would reconvene on the 9th of April, picking up wherever we left off. Obviously, there'd be a little refresher. Remember, this was the witness on the stand or whatever was going on. But we would take a week off and use a few days of the week of April 9th rather than a few days of the week of April 2. I should have said this at the outset. It is the estimation of the attorneys that that's the last week into which we would be intruding. It's too far away to know. We would only be Monday, Tuesday of either the week of April 2 or April 9 or through Wednesday. But both sides think that it is the right time to share with you all the likelihood that we're going to need time beyond Friday, March 30th. So be thinking about that. Your commitment to us was through March 30th with some flags raised that there could be problems with that first week in April. And a solution to that is to take that week off from this trial. And we just pick up wherever we left off on April 9th and go from there. So be thinking about that. Please consult with the folks you need to consult with. And then let's talk tomorrow morning. It may be that tomorrow morning you say, it's too soon for me individually to have figured out which is better. And if you need more time, then you need more time. It won't delay us going forward tomorrow with what we need to go through. And obviously we're coming back Monday of next week. But the sooner we can reach closure as to when we'll be reconvening in April, the better you can plan and the better we can restructure some things as well. Any questions about that lead balloon I just dropped on you all? Yes, ma'am.
So it don't matter how early or how late we come or stay.
So Juror 61's question is, does it matter? I mean, technically, if we just never went home, we would get through it before March 30th, but that's not practical, and this is not a reaction to you all saying you've got a conflict on Saturday. Saturday would have been I'm making the numbers up, but like a 10 to 3. We wouldn't have grabbed all your Saturday anyway. I don't, and you're already giving us till 6, and I impress that upon the attorneys. Well, hey, we're going until 6 each night, or most of the nights between now and the end of March. But we had a good discussion about what's left in the state's case, and a discussion about should the defense choose to put anything on. They don't have any burden, so they may not. But should they choose to do so, how long that might take, and the likelihood of them doing that. And that led us all to say, boy, we better start this dialogue now so we understand what people's situations are. Yes, ma'am. I don't remember your juror number.
I'm 106.
106?
Yes.
How are you 106?
Is there a possibility that it would go past that additional week, or are we saying right now it's an additional week, but it's close and it might even be more than that?
I might not come back if it goes beyond that additional week. That might just be judged mistrial. We're done. If you can't get all this, no, I'm being facetious. I wouldn't leave, but that's not the forecast. The forecast is it's not realistic to assume you all will get the case by Friday the 30th. And if you did, it would be 5 p.m. on Friday the 30th, and you don't get 2 minutes for deliberations. You get as much.
Is that the end of the trial, and then we would have deliberation after that week, or would that additional week include all the rest of the presentation as well as a reasonable amount of time to deliberate?
The latter.
Okay.
The expectation is that what would spill into whatever part of April we use is whatever is left to be presented from either side, along with those closing arguments, my charge to you all, and all that takes up only part of the day. And then the time you all need to deliberate. And I should be clear, there's no fixed time on deliberations. It's not infinite. If after days and days there's no verdict, then there's not going to be a verdict. But there's not a timer that's running either. But thank you for asking that. My vision right now, based on what I've heard from both sides, is that The time needed in that final week, that week in April sometime, would not be the entire week, but it would include deliberations.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. On that high note, let's transition back to the state's presentation.
During the break, Judge, we had an opportunity to cue it up, check the sound. I think we're going to be good on volume. You guys just let me know if not. Just as a preliminary matter, Detective Zimmer, could you tell the jurors when we start the video, actually, can you see the video on your screen?
Yes, sir.
Who is that present in that screenshot right there?
Me.
That's you.
Yes.
And so who enters the room first?
Before we go any further, does it help you all when I lower the lights? That's useful. I'll keep them low. If you can't see or hear what's going on, let us know so that the technical people can try to fix that. Sorry, Mr. Rucker.
That's all right. Who enters the room first?
I believe it's Mr. Leopold,
Okay.
and then Darren Smith, and then Mr. Maples.
Okay. And did the defendant come into the room at the same time as the attorneys?
No.
And why not?
Mr. McIver was in the family room just down the hall from this particular interview room. That's where they were brought to when they walked in the front door of the headquarters building. The two attorneys and Mr. McIver, the three attorneys, were brought up to the family room where they sat, and then we prepared the room, started the recording, and then the two attorneys, Mr. Maples, Mr. Leopold, came into the room, did a little bit of briefing, laying some groundwork, I guess, for what was going to come from this statement or what we should expect to come from this statement. A little back and forth about the process, the procedure, and then Mr. Maples left the room and went and got Mr. McIver, and probably 4 minutes later they walked in. So the original interview, from the time that everybody walks into the room in just a second here, there's probably about 16 or 17 minutes before Mr. McIver actually is presented.
Okay. And what did you understand to be the relationship between Mr. Maples and Mr. McIver?
My understanding was that Mr. Maples was there as counsel for Mr. McIver, attorney.
And how about Mr. Leopold?
The same.
And you said that during that early kind of exchange between the detectives and the defense attorneys, kind of some ground rules were laid.
Correct. We just told him that we were there for the purpose of hearing his side of the story. And then Mr. Maples began to explain what Mr. McIver was going to say and presented his side, his version of it. Mr. Leopold sat in the corner.
Stop.
Isn't this... First, it's hearsay. Secondly, I don't know whether what we're talking about now is part of the redacted or unredacted, so let me move to strike and object to the question and answer. At this point, it's not focused.
Okay. Mr. Rucker, your thought?
I think the detective has been already instructed prior to his testimony to only refer to redacted parts when we're talking about what is spoken. So I just wanted to lay some context to the redaction, but...
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is leave things as they are, but ask you now to, I think we've got context.
Okay, all right. So then let's play the video.
If you play about 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and then we'll just make sure everyone can see and hear it, and then I will get involved again.
Good afternoon. How are you? Nice to see you too. Okay. He knows that, they were on I-20. Danny Joe was driving. Diane was in the front passenger seat. He was right sitting behind her. He knows that that's all he knows on I-20. And then he said, he woke up because the car seemed to be going downhill, which means it's sort of half asleep that way. He said the car seemed to be going downhill. And he asked him, what are y'all doing? He said, well, we had to get off because of traffic, blah, 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 blah. He said, okay. And so he said, they turned. He didn't know whether they turned right or left. And there's no sense in that pushing it. He doesn't know. Right. He was asleep. And then the next thing he knows, he's in either the 4th or the 5th ward. You know, all he knows is there's a large number of people outside that appear to be homeless. It's a dangerous area of town that he's familiar with. He's seen, you know, lots of police cars and activity there. Well, he recognized that, you know, there were people out in the street.
This is a good time to
So another sign off.
Mr. Maples didn't observe the silence your cell phone policy. You all hear that?
Yes.
Okay, great.
No, we don't have our sign off from it. It's a pretty important doesn't put your cell phone, so that's fine. He doesn't know when they come on that. He knows that there were large number of homeless people, people that were walking around, people in the street. And he said he didn't see that, but he just saw and people walking the street, people walking the car, and that's when he asked Diane to hand him the pistol. She opened the console, which is where it's stored, and handed it back to him. And he apparently went right back to sleep. And then he's off, and he doesn't remember the conversation that they had, like when they got on the Piedmont somehow, and I don't know how. All that happened, and he's going to tell you whatever somebody can remember. Brown plastic bag, like a grocery shopping bag, and he was sitting in the back seat, and his only recollection is he had the brown paper bag, plastic bag, and he's holding it down like this. And he said he didn't play with the hammer. He didn't put it back at 4 o'clock. He knew where Edward was. He's been there a number of times. That's where he takes his clients. And so he knows how they're on Piedmont to go down and they turn on the morning side and they go, and that turns into Eagle Rock. That turns into right. Yeah. Tex McIver. And Mr. Smith, you chatted downstairs. Thank you for the coming. Oh, that's right. Downstairs. So we can remember. Did you want some water in here? I just had some. You sure had some? Sure. Okay. All right. If you want any, just let us know. I'll grab you one. Okay. We got plenty. So, obviously, we just kind of wanted to talk to you about the events that happened over the past weekend. I know some of it's probably going to be difficult for you to answer, but take your time. We're in no rush here. We're not here to assume what happened. We're just trying to basically get a timeline of the events that happened and just tell me whatever you can remember. I don't expect you to tell me something that you don't know. And that's all we're trying to figure out here. Because I just kind of wanted to start back. From what I understand, everybody was at your nice, I guess you got a horse farm or a horse ranch down in Putnam County? Yeah. Okay, yeah, I looked at it online. It looks quite nice. So how many horses do you have down there? 9. Okay. Do you guys go down there fairly often? Kind of get away from the city place? Okay. What day did you guys get down there? Who was there? You remember?
We got down on Friday, and Danny Joe Curry was our guest.
Okay. Did you guys all go down in one vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. That was the expedition?
Correct.
Okay. Did you guys take turns driving down there, or did somebody drive one of the others?
I think I drove.
Okay. It was me. I like to drive when I go.
Yeah,
But that's it.
I like to be in control.
I'm the same way. I like to drive, so. So you guys got down there Friday? What did you guys do? Find some horses and...
We got down about 8 o'clock, had dinner at a local restaurant.
Okay.
Came in, went to bed.
Okay. And that was Friday, right?
Correct.
And then what happened? What did you guys do on Saturday?
Errands in the morning.
Okay.
I went to the co-op and picked up cattle feed and things like that.
Okay.
And
Okay. And then on Sunday, so Sunday, what was Sunday like? What time did you guys get out? I'm trying to figure out what happened, what you guys might have done that day and what time you left.
The manager of our place comes at 9 o'clock for an hour and a half, and he goes to church and takes the day off. And I get up early routinely on Sunday, make coffee, and get ready for folks. Had some sausage and biscuits. And he came at 9. He and I fed the animals. And I got up with Angel about 10. He had breakfast. He left at 10:30 to go to church.
Did you guys do anything on Sunday?
It's kind of a crash day. Lay around, watch some football recap stuff. Left at noon we belong to Reynolds Plantation. And we left at noon. Went over, had a snack, hit some balls, and had a tea time at 2 o'clock. And the golf's about 4 hours, 4.5. Right. So
For me, it's about 6.
That's bad, it would. After our golf, we went back to the range to pick up Dana Joe. She had been riding horses in the afternoon. We left there, and we met Diane's vice president of sales, a fellow named Craig Stringer. He lives in Commerce. And we met him at a local Walmart for dinner. They talked business, and we all had a meeting.
Do you guys have anything to drink, or what were you eating?
Diane ordered a bottle of wine. And red wine. Red wine. And for once. And anyway, Mr. Stringer and Dana Joe don't drink. They're all three. She poured me a glass and poured herself a glass. And dinner came and we ate. Craig went home and we got in the car. Danny was driving. For obvious reasons.
Right.
She drove the rest of the way.
Did you guys, I don't know if Longhorn July, did you guys take the bottle with you, or did you leave it there?
Oh, no, left it on the
Okay, I didn't think Longhorn, so let's take it out.
Okay. I don't know if it was left on the table.
Okay.
How much was consumed? Just a glass each, 2 glasses, or you finished the bottle between the two of you? Red wine gives me a headache. So I had a couple sips of the glass she poured, and then she free poured, whatever. But anyway, instead of me, she did that for me. And there may have been wine left in the bottle, but I just right. We had a meal, and Mr. Stringer paid for it, and we got up. Trying to go home and get sleep.
What time was that you think you left again?
9:30.
And then, well, you guys are coming home from there. How do you normally travel to get up to your guys' place?
What's it always? I-20 all the way, and then get on the connector, and then get off 400. We have a condo we use during the week. It's right next to the Lennox Mall.
So it's the easiest route for you, just get off the line.
There's very little traffic.
Right. How long does that normally take?
From the ranch to the...
Yeah, from the ranch without a stop here, how long does it normally take?
An hour and 40. It's about 100 minutes. From Congress, it's about an hour.
That ride from Conyers over to the connector, were you guys having conversations in the car or talking about anything, or you remember?
I was asleep. It's been a long day for me. My golf swing is so bad, it takes a lot of energy to get around. And so I think your colleagues spend a lot of time in the woods.
It happens.
When I get off the golf course, I'm really tired.
I have to. I have a lot. Yeah. Takes it, especially in the heat, it takes it out. So, what's the next thing that you can remember after you left Conyers and got in the vehicle? So, Danny was driving, right? Okay.
I was in the backseat.
In the backseat. Okay. And what's the next thing that you can? I know you said you kind of fell asleep there. What's the next thing that you can remember from there?
Despite the fact I was tired, I don't sleep well in the car, so just emotional. So it's kind of a twilight zone thing for me. I remember the turn going from I-20 onto the connector. It's a pretty hard right turn. Yeah. Guaranteed to wake me up. And the next thing I remember is we're going down. And the connector doesn't go down. We've been on it a lot, but we were going down. And you know, just wondering what that was. And then a turn was made. And I knew then that we were no longer on the connector. Right. And I came up and I said, girls, where are we and what's happening here? Right. Because we were clearly off our path. Right. And that's fine. First voice.
Okay. And what do you remember after that happening next?
We went through an area of, I could describe my familiarity with it, but we went through an area I thought that was particularly dangerous. At night. I'd seen police vehicles there. It's a route I take from my office to her office. Okay. And I see police vehicles there with blue lights on, and they're doing things with people that are there. And
remember any landmarks or anything?
It was an underpass. Okay. As best I, it was very dark, but it seemed to me it was. And that's one that has a particularly high population of homeless people. Okay. At least in the daytime, but at night there's a lot of people there. Okay. And I quickly said, this is a big mistake. We're in a place that we don't belong. Right. And of course here we are in an almost new SUV and two women in the front seat. Right. And all that. So anyway, they made a couple turns and things were not going well. I said, we'll be on Piedmont shortly. And I said, I'd like to. If you don't mind, please hand me my gun. Right. It was in the center console. We've had some break-ins in our office where the only thing they're looking for seems to be a gun. And so in response to that, I had wrapped my gun in a Publix grocery sack. So if you open the console, you have no clue what you're looking at, whether the flashlight and stuff like that. So Diane reaches in, pulls it out, hands it back to me, and by then we may have been on Piedmont. Anyway, I'm relatively satisfied that we're out of that kind of area. Right. And I guess I just laid back again and went to sleep. Okay. This twilight zone kind of thing. Right. Had the weapon in my lap.
Okay. And then what do you remember next happening?
Danny Joe came to a stop. And anyway, I just time to wake up. And, but she came to a stop, and I was handling the gun. I realized it was in my lap, right, and it went off.
Okay. All right.
When Jamie was looking for, or when she was making these turns, was she following GPS? Was she listening to anything, or just from her? No, in the city. Diane's office is very near there, and Diane was directing her. Right, left. So she knew where she was, basically. Right. My dismay was, it seemed like every turn we made, the street was darker, and there were more people milling about. I mean, it was kind of thing that rose the hair on the back of your neck. Is it like down near the Peachtree Pine Shelter in that area there? I'm not sure what ramp would be going down. It skirts around Brady somewhere. Edgewood.
Edgewood, you gotta go back under the downtown connector. Because you think that might be the tunnel type area, and it's dark under there. That's the only old house.
Yeah, if you come up, you come off of Edgewood,
Station
and that trolley or whatever the big rip-off thing is. The streetcar. Yeah. Their garage is right there in Bell Street and Auburn and all that stuff down there. Okay. All I know was when I got my head up above and could look out. Right. It was a scene that you didn't want to see.
That's the only place I can think of that had an underpass on. Piedmont all the way up through. The rest of it's all open.
Right, and I guess if you went underneath there, and then you made your way over to Piedmont, and then there were a couple of turns in there before.
Yeah, there's some weird. You got to drive around the streetcar.
Candidly, I was fussing.
Right.
And she said, "We're almost to Piedmont. Right, settle down. Suffer for north."
It's pretty much a straight shot north from there.
On Piedmont?
Yeah, yes. Look at that. I mean, I know you. Do you know why? I mean, just if you don't know, I mean, and they said you were sleeping all the time. Do you know why she got off of Edgewood?
No, he doesn't know where she got off.
Right, that's what
Where she got off the express.
Yeah,
Because of the road, she was going down.
No, that's how he knows you were going down.
And that, again, it kind of.
But you don't know why you wasn't. Right, and it's.
And Diane's kind of a control person, and she said, go down here and we'll take surface streets home.
Does she travel the surface streets to work? That you know of, off and on, depending on the highway traffic?
No, but that's her neighborhood.
Okay.
Her office is that big smokestack, 225 Corey Center.
Yeah, the smokestack that sticks on the highway? Or Corey's?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, she's right there by the river across from the hospital there. Sort of her neighborhood. I guess she felt confident.
Right.
Going through there. But I could tell she hadn't been through there that hour of the night.
Right. Okay, so, what do you remember after the gun was off?
I was there, shock. I immediately called out. I said, is everybody all right? And Danny Joe said yes. And Diane's head was kind of slanted. She said, I've been shot, words to that effect. And I immediately put my arms around her and tried to determine how bad it was. And then I made the judgment that Emory was the closest hospital. They're a client of our firm, they're a good. So we shot down Piedmont, crossed over Monroe, hit more inside, went into the ER. Dan and Joe driving with me, telling her to test.
The gun is yours?
Yes.
How long have you had that?
Oh, since I got the car, this year about 13 months.
Did you buy it like in a sporting goods store? Oh,
yeah, sure, I can tell you all.
Do you remember which one?
It's called Baines, B-A-Y-N-E-S, Army Navy, in Milledgeville, Georgia. So, gun store that's there, a lot of sportsmen.
Okay.
Popular. I ordered that from them and they brought it to me.
Okay. I mean, how often did you shoot the gun?
I didn't discharge that gun in a couple of years.
Okay.
I don't worry about a revolver.
Right. You ever taken any, like, safety classes or anything like that?
No, I was in the military.
Okay. And it's in, serving in Vietnam, all right?
Correct.
So he was in the Air Force. Okay.
Army guys.
I was in the Air Force too. You know, that makes us smart. Seeing that in the Air Force, we sent the officers out there to fight the war.
That's kind of branch of the military.
It's like a camp. That's like a day camp.
We had better officers close.
We ate better, we slept better. I think he's just joking.
Yes, my service.
You never get to the hospital, you know what happened next?
Never forget as long as I live. As we pulled up to what's the door of the ER, Temple Circular thing, I got out and yelled gunshot wound. And anyway, people were scurrying around and a gurney comes out and I help them load Diane. At that point she wasn't very responsive. And they rolled her in, and of course I'm holding her hand, going with her, and we go into the room. Maybe 30 inch as big as this, and it is absolutely filled with people. Can't tell you how impressed I was. I mean, maybe 15 people. And
staff-wise?
They got a blue of stuff. And I'm still holding her hand, and people are doing everything like you see on TV. And finally, this doctor turns to me. He's got the long coat, which tells you a doctor versus an intern. Right? He turned and said, we don't have room for you anymore. And I knew then I was obstructing their efforts. And I moved outside as quick as I could and just watched through the glass.
The car, DJ's still in the car. The car gets valeted, so obviously
Yes,
and then,
Danny Joe grabbed her purse and Diane's purse, which I guess had some money in it, and just ran off, and I guess the valet took it. But I wasn't there.
and then we ended up with the car at the end of the night, or the
middle of the night, whatever.
Well, I left my phone. I left everything. Okay. Danny Joe went back outside to get my phone. Right. So I could, again.
Yeah, because the gun was still in the car.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I dropped it immediately and went right to it. Yes, sir.
Did you get a chance to talk to the doctors at all? Or anything that you can recall?
Yes, there was. They brought us into the family room at the ER, and it was a female doctor with a name tag, and the whole thing was a blur. I think it was Hardy or something, a female. Okay. And she said, your wife's in bad shape, but she's responsive, and we've been lucky enough to get 2 surgeons from Grady to come over. I guess that was a stroke of luck. And they're going to move her up to the OR, and they're going to have to go in. And at that time, we asked her.
Folks, we're going to break away from that Tex McIver interrogation video. I realize it's a little bit hard for many of you to hear.